Okay, everybody, I like to start on time. Thank you for being here. Thanks so much. Before we get started, I just want to quickly introduce myself in case I have not made your acquaintance yet formally. My name is Noreen Savage, and you might wonder why I'm doing these Zooms. So I first want to tell you who I am and who I'm not. I'm not anybody official with Brightline Eating. Didn't write the book or anything like that, but I've had the benefit of the book. I had a friend, I have a friend, Lori, who introduced me by her taking the step at her 1-year BLE anniversary by posting on her private Facebook. And she simply said that she had lost 57 pounds by doing Brightline Eating. And she described that it was no sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, and weighed and measured portions. But if you want more information, contact her. And I thought, there's got to be more than that. There's got to be more than that. And so I private messaged her, and she proceeded to tell me that, no, that was the real deal. And I thought, no way, absolutely no way can I do that. But I really like you, Lori. Let's go for lunch. So we did. We talked more about Brightline Eating, and I again thought, there's no way I can do this. But I went back home, and within a couple of weeks, the pain in my feet, the excruciating pain in my knee, my back, wondering if I'd wake up in the morning some days at 270 pounds, it got my attention, and I thought, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try one more thing. And I made a promise to myself that if I made it 1 year, I would do what Lori did and post on my private Facebook page, and I would help anybody I could. So just before that 1 year, I'm a Christian, and I felt like God just told me, you can do more than just post on Facebook. You could offer Zoom chats for people who could see some of these successful stories. Here's the successful stories that I've been watching all year on my journey with Brightline Eating. And one of those people is Kimberly Champion. And I am so grateful to you for coming in today and being my guest. I would have never, I had no idea that they would go beyond the reach of just a few friends. And I am just so grateful that you are here. So without talking any more about me, I want to introduce you. I do want to say that if you have any questions throughout this, please just go to the chat button that's at the bottom of your screen, and you can put questions for Kim or me in the chat, and we will try to get through them by the end of this 1 hour. So Kim, welcome. And if you wouldn't mind, would you take us back to where you were? I think it was 2017, you said. We talked a little bit the other day just to get to know each other. Where were you in your life before Brightline Eating?
Yeah, I started Brightline Eating in June of 2017, and I was rapidly approaching rock bottom, and just so frustrated with my eating habits and my binge eating. I was hardcore binge eating disorder, and just watching my weight climb and my health decline. And I was starting to consider like weight loss surgery, which I knew I didn't want to do, but felt like the only option for me. I just couldn't seem to do better. And I went to bed every night in fear that I would not wake up in the morning. I was a raging diabetic, medicated, and still blood sugar readings in the high 200s, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and just depressed, in pain, ashamed, just feeling awful every day.
Yeah, so you were probably dieting before then? Or, I mean, you were thinking weight loss surgery, but had you just tried everything in the book like a lot of people have?
I actually didn't. I'm not
No?
not one of the serial dieters, who tried every plan out there. I had a few periods of weight loss success throughout my life, and I've been overweight or obese my entire life. And but I wasn't, I was trying to eat healthy, but without really. I had had some success with like an Atkins plan many, many years ago, so I kept trying to go back and follow that, and it just it wouldn't stick. I would do okay for a few days. I would white knuckle it through, and then I'd be back into my old habits. And I remember being at my doctor's office, and they said, "Kim, you're going to have a fatal cardiac event within the next 5 years." And still, every day, I was back in the food, back in the food.
And that's the thing is that what does Susan say in her book? She says something like every year 70,000 people will lose a limb due to diabetes, but they just can't stop.
You can't.
They just can't stop. So what brought you exactly to Brightline Eating then? Your doctor? Or
no, doctors were very not helpful. They were just like, eat better and exercise. Like, who hasn't heard that, right? If it were that easy, we would all do it. It was actually my therapist. I was talking to my therapist and expressing this just kind of hopeless feeling, and that I, was so afraid I was going to die, and I'm a single mom. And I just said, like, I don't know where else to go. I don't know what else to do. And she said, I just heard about this book, called Brightline Eating, and maybe you want to check it out. So of course I went online, I took this susceptibility quiz, and I watched some of Susan's videos and just really felt like they were speaking to me. So I got the book, I read the book, I read the book again. I kind of made my plan, cleaned out my house, picked my start date, and I went for it. And one of and Noreen, you and I spoke about this, one of the lines that's in the very beginning of the book that really, really spoke to me is Susan used the phrase suicide on the installment plan. And that was where I was. I mean, I was killing myself every day, every single day.
And then you started by reading the book. That was your entry in. You used kind of the how-to that's in the book, and you found the Food Freedom Quiz, which is foodfreedomquiz.com for somebody who is new to Brightline Eating today, to find out your susceptibility scale. So you were basically working the book.
I read the book just because I wanted the science of it, and I wanted that to kind of prepare for what was coming at the end of the book. And when I picked my start date, I did sign up for the 14-day challenge. And then when you sign up, I don't know if it's still the same, but at the time when I signed up for the 14-day challenge, when you finish the, the sign up process, it's like, but wait, there's more, like if you take the leap now and just go straight into boot camp, then it's, there was this kind of discount. And so I was like, why not? I can do this for a couple months. So I actually went straight, I skipped over the 14-day challenge and I went straight into boot camp.
Okay, so you went foodfreedomquiz.com for somebody who's new. And I also took that Food Freedom Quiz. And then you get an email and it says, if you want to join the boot camp, the 14-day
challenge. Yeah.
That at the time was like $30. I don't know. They were having a special for $14 right now. I don't know if it is right now, but you signed up for that, but you really didn't do that. You went right into the boot camp.
I went, it offered going straight into the boot camp. So I did. So yeah, I did the quiz, some videos on her website. Then I read the book. And at the end of the book, when I was convinced that I thought this could work for me, or, that it was the next thing I wanted to try, not at the time, and I'll get into that, definitely not at the time thinking it was my lifestyle forever.
So may I ask you then, what was your high weight and what you are now?
Yeah, so my top weight, and I started Brightline Eating at 260 pounds, but my top weight was back in about 2000. I was 330 pounds, and I'm only 5'2". That is, and if anybody saw the slideshow at the beginning, that was the black and white picture. I mean, it was, I was huge.
You were still cute.
Thanks, I was.
No, but it kind of brings me, you said that you've had a lifelong eating, did you consider yourself a food addict, or was it like emotional eating, or what? I mean, I have not personally called myself a food addict yet. I haven't accepted that, but everybody's at a different path, and that's the beautiful part about this. Some people don't have even any susceptibility, but they may want to get off sugar for health reasons, right? So where did you come in with this? Like, what was, if you don't mind, like, what was your struggle going in? Because here you were with diabetes, and, you know, obviously you were heading down a bad road.
Yeah.
So
I
where,
identified as an addict long before I ever found Brightline Eating, and you know, my history. There's abuse and trauma in my family, and multiple instances of it. And what happened was my mother was a feeder, so like there was all this horrible stuff going on, and my mother would just be like, "Oh, let me make you some of the," you know, I'm not going to say the terms, but you know, "Let me bake you some of these, let me make you some of those, let me buy you packages of this." And so just very naturally from a very young age, I learned to soothe with food. And I did that for my whole life. The trauma wasn't dealt with for many, many years to come. And that was just how I learned to care for my emotions.
but
So
it
long before I started Brightline Eating, I clearly identified as a hardcore food addict.
okay. So then I would imagine that when you read that science part, it like gave you permission to, I don't know, for me, forgive myself, because why, I was successful in other areas of my life. Why in the world couldn't I get this under control? So for me, it just like the heavens opened. I was like, I really literally read the first 5 chapters, shut the book, and said, I'm going to get thin. And I didn't even pick up the book again. I started on the program with just a chart. But once I knew the science, I'm like, I am going to get thin. I now understand.
Yeah.
So that's where I
It was
was.
fascinating. And that's why I read the book twice. Like I kind of got to the end of it and I was like, huh, like, wait, really? And then so I went back and read it again, like made sure I had it all firmly in my brain, knew what the plan was. And then I just dove right in and got started. But it was good for a doctor to say to you, you're going to die in the next
Yeah.
5 years. And I was in my late 40s and a single mom. And it meant everything in the world to me, obviously, to stay healthy and be here for my child. And yet every day I made the wrong choices. And
Right.
for me to read about scientifically, you know, why that was happening,
And you
it
go
was
to bed,
nice to read that.
you go to bed and think tomorrow, or you plan
Tomorrow, yeah,
today or
yeah.
whatever.
Tomorrow I'll do better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, somehow tomorrow you try, but it doesn't work out.
Right.
So, yeah, I totally get that. So now I have not gone to boot camp or done the 14-day challenge. What would someone expect of, because there's a cost to it, even though I know that there is a scholarship program.
There
So
is.
if you go to brightlineeating.com, if you were brand new to Brightline Eating, you wanted to inquire about the boot camp, I know that there's a scholarship program to take advantage of. I know that some people have some kind of discounts, which, and that is another whole thing. But what could someone expect going into this? And, you know, is it worth it? I mean, you stayed in it, right?
It was worth every penny and then some for me. So again, I jumped right over the 14-day challenge, so I can't really speak to what is included in that. I went straight into boot camp. And one of the things is you get into a boot camp house. So there's a Facebook house that you get into along with people who've started the program around the same time as you. And then you get all of these video modules that Susan puts out and kind of goes through the entire scope of all the situations, you know, kind of expands on the brain science, talks about real life situations, how to navigate travel, how to navigate restaurants, what to say to your friends and family, what to do when you're struggling, like just so many. I think there's like 8 to 10 videos a week for the whole, I believe it's 10 weeks that you're in boot camp. It's just so much information. And then there are coaching calls that are available to you. Of course, you've got a house leader who's somebody who's been doing Brightline Eating, and I've been a house leader now
Oh, wow.
people who have done Brightline Eating, and then you're just in there with a bunch of peers who are, you know, starting out new to the program, and you make buddies, and you just learn so much and are so well supported
Can
in the
someone
program.
request a certain house leader or not? Or do you just get who you get?
You get who you get. You get different house leaders and different VIP posters, you know, like, again, people, I've done that too, people who have been in the program for a while and just come in to kind of answer questions and give suggestions and give support. I mean, it's so well run. So you just have a ton of experienced support in there, as well as all these kind of newbies who are starting out along with you.
Oh, that's
in fact,
great.
a lot of people will go back and repeat a boot camp. Like if they've been in Brightline Eating for a year, 2 years, 3 years, they go back and do a second boot camp, just because it's like, they call it a reboot, like refreshing.
And you have to pay for that again, or?
You do. So I went from boot camp. When I finished boot camp, I went straight into Bright Lifers, which is kind of the mothership program, if you will. And again, there's another cost to that, but it's a decreasing cost for every year that you renew. It gets less and less for, I think, for like three years and then it levels out at the lowest cost. But as a Bright Lifer, if I want to do boot camp again, I think it's like $97.
Okay, so that's pretty manageable for the most part, especially if you did it over the year or whatever. But so here you are, you're in boot camp. What did you find was the easiest or hardest part about the program for you? And everybody's different. Like I practiced for 3 weeks and then I jumped in with the scale and everything, like weighed and measured, but I had to practice. So what was it for you?
It was really easy for me, and sometimes I feel guilty saying this, but don't worry, I've had my struggles that happened afterwards. But for me, boot camp, the beginning, the weight loss phase was very, very easy, and that speaks a lot to my personality. I'm a very like black and white, checklisty, organized, super planner kind of person. So this spoke to me in a real way. Just having like the checklists, the meal plan. Those things were very easy. I think I didn't really have any real cravings kind of after the first couple of days when the sugar, I think it's like 3 days kind of for sugar to get out of your system. That was it for me. I didn't suffer from like low energy, or giving up coffee was hard. And I have since included it back in, but I used to be kind of the Starbucks, you know, sugary latte. So I had to give up my coffee. That was tough. The first couple of weeks I think were hard. I felt like all I did was think about food, plan food, make food, clean up after food, weigh food, pack food. I was like, I thought this program was supposed to take food decisions like out of your mind. And I felt like that was all I did for the first probably 2 weeks, until I just kind of found my groove and found my routine. And now I'm a batch cooker. I'm a batch prepper. Like on the weekends, I cook for the entire week, so I don't have to think about it again after that.
Well, what would be something you might batch cook? Do you like make, you know, your proteins in batch cook? Because I do like breakfast muffins that I'll make for the week or whatever, but that's about it for me.
Yeah, no, I make my oatmeal for the week. I chop up apples for my breakfast for the week. I make a huge giant bowl of salad that's probably 4 or 5 days worth of lunch, and then I roast pounds and pounds and pounds of vegetables, which is my dinner every day. And I bake my tofu. I'm whole food plant-based, so I bake my tofu, which holds me over for the week, and that's it. I mean, I spend a day of the weekend usually cooking, and I'm done for the week.
And that's got to give you peace there.
Oh, yeah. When I first started, you know, I love to cook. I'm a creative, and I've always enjoyed cooking. And in fact, I'm a huge baker. So like it was tough to, you know, adjust. And I used to like to really experiment with recipes. You know, this is part of my history. And I went into Brightline Eating doing that. And then probably about a year into the program, if you know any of the blogs or know where to find the blogs, there's one called Adiposity Set Point, or it talks about the Adiposity Set Point. And there was this whole kind of simple foods movement in Brightline Eating, which is talking about simplifying your foods, kind of taking out spices, you know, not getting sexy with your food. And I was like, I was like, don't you dare take away my variety, my spices. Like, I have given up enough. And then lo and behold, on my own, about 6 months later, I was like, this simple food thing is the best. Like, everybody should just eat the same thing all the time. It's so peaceful. It makes life so easy.
And see, this is what I love, is that for me, I do need the variety. And
Yeah.
I was more simplified in the beginning. And then as I got going, and as I said, I make breakfast muffins, that like just gave me peace around, okay, I have that. I have those muffins if I want them in the morning, and they're there. And so I just felt peace about it. And, I don't know, I needed more variety as I kept going. So this is the thing. I think so many people want to just pigeonhole that you got to do it this way or
Yep.
that way. And it's really your own journey is all I can say.
Yeah, it really is. And that's something, having been in Brightline Eating for over 3 years now, I have seen it grow and change in a lot of ways. And that's been the biggest one, where it used to be very rigid, follow the rules, just follow the plan. And that is still a guiding principle, but I have just seen so much more flexibility come in for being able to craft it in a way that it works for you while still sticking to the principles of the 4 bright lines.
I agree that to me is there. You even mentioned coffee. I have coffee with no guilt at all,
Me
with
too.
cream in it. Because if you read in the book, she's like, you can have coffee with
Yeah.
cream, like the one,
Right. Mhm.
and if it's up to you if you want to go beyond that. And I do sometimes. And the thing for me is I realize my weight loss is going to be slower
Right.
than somebody who's not doing that. And that's the give and take of it. That
Sure.
don't expect to be losing 2-3 pounds a week if you're having 2-3 cups of coffee with cream every day. I mean,
Right.
for me anyway, it doesn't
Right.
work that way. So it's just a trade-off, like making those choices. And yeah, that's pretty cool. And I just have to ask, I don't know if you have a daughter or son or what, but did that make it easier for you for the cooking for the child too? I mean, just people have, like I have 4 adults in the house and 5 grandchildren. And so there's just so much food around the house all the time. I guess what I'm asking is preparing your food ahead of time, does it make it easier to be around other food that might not be in your program for your child?
I have actually never had trouble with that. So I mentioned that I'm a baker, and I still am. I do
Oh,
still bake, and it's not recommended. Susan actually has done some vlogs about this too, about me specifically. Um, but it's, for me, it's like, it's just a project. Like, it's no different than sitting down with a canvas and, painting something. It's literally a creative project. So I can bake for other people. I make food for my daughter. There's NMF in the house all the time. And I'm literally blind to it.
okay.
Yeah.
So how long did that take that you were just, it was out of your system as far as I don't look at it as my food. Was it overnight? I mean,
Uh, it really was immediate. Yeah, it really was immediate. I know that, like, for me personally, baking is such a part of who I am. It's a big part of family traditions. And I knew that if the day came that I ate even the smallest crumb of that, I would lose the privilege of baking it. And I was not willing to go down that path. I didn't want to lose it. It's too important to me. So from day one, I just said, it's a project. That's
right.
all it is.
Yeah, I actually tested myself with that. I told you I'd make the breakfast muffins. Well, my grandchildren wanted me to make mini muffins for them. And so I did. I got a pan, bought a pan. I made them, and I decided to try a couple. And the thing was, they were bright muffins. They're actually the same recipe that I use.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the size or what, but I tried a couple and I discovered, oh my gosh, this is a problem. Then I tried it again a few days later because they liked them so much. And I baked them again. And again, it was the size. I couldn't leave them alone. I'm like, okay, this is a problem. I can't bake them anymore. I just can't have them around. So, I mean, and I totally get it.
That's what
Like,
we call running the experiment.
yeah,
Now you
like you
know.
hope and pray that you're not in the ditch too long with the flat tire, that you can't get back on the road, because it does derail you. But for me, one thing my friend Lori, who introduced me to Brightline Eating, one thing she told me when I got started, when I finally I'm going to do it, she says, Noreen, two things. If you should go off plan, tell yourself, don't beat yourself up, rather. Don't beat yourself up. And second, don't look back. You're not going that way. And I have held on to those mantras.
Yeah.
And I have another one that I just say, stop, drop, and do the next right thing.
Next right thing.
So whether that happened between lunch and dinner's going to be bright, and there's going to be nothing after dinner. So do you have a mantra, or I did post the one thing that you were saying about 100%.
Yeah. There was the one about today's strength today, like you don't have tomorrow's strength today, you only have enough for today. So it's kind of a long-winded way of one day at a time. But the other one was, it's, and this was something I heard on an accountability call, which are daily calls that you have access to as a Bright Lifer. One of the coaches said, it's easier to work a 100% program than to work a 95% program, because the problem with a 95% program is you spend 100% of your days wondering, will today be a 95% day or a 5% day? So it just messes with the piece around your program. So for me, it is just easier to stay 100%, no deviations. So I'm what they call a crystal vaser, meaning I've never broken my bright lines in the 3+ years that I've been doing the program.
Which is amazing.
It is amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. And you went into this I'm just going to try this thing.
I went into it saying I was just going to try it. So it was June when I started, and my prior lowest adult weight had been 188 pounds. And so when I started Brightline Eating, I thought two things. I thought, if I can just get to Thanksgiving, so that was 5 months, if I can just get to Thanksgiving on this diet, I'll eat whatever I want. That will be my reward for the holidays. And my other hope was, if I can really stay on it, if I could just get to 180 pounds, that was my big goal. And of course, by the time Thanksgiving rolled around, you could not have paid me. There was no food you could have put in front of me to entice me to eat off plan. I brought my own food to Thanksgiving dinner, and I well surpassed the 180-pound goal.
That is just so amazing. Okay, we got to talk about that. You brought your own food to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
Now,
food everywhere.
Okay, so no apologies, just forthright. You're just going to plan ahead.
Yep.
And you make it work. What do you people, have you had the instance where people say, well, Kim, come on, just a little bite's not going to hurt you? What is your comeback to that?
No, thank you. No, I've got my own food. I'm all set. Thank you. That looks great. You enjoy it. I'm good with what I've got. And I feel the only time that I had that I really struggled with that was somebody made a special dessert for me. And she was like, but it has no sugar and it's got almond flour, it's not flour. And she made it special just for me. And that was hard to say. I didn't want to eat it, but I felt terrible saying no, because she was so excited that she thought she had made something compliant for me. I just simply said, I write down my food the night before, and if it's not something that was written on my plan, I just don't eat it. But thank you so much for thinking of me. That was so kind of you. But I'm not going to do it.
So here you are, 3 years in, you hit maintenance. How did you determine what maintenance was going to be? Because you had gone in first, if I hit 180 pounds, I'm golden.
Yeah.
So when did you start transitioning to a maintenance format?
So remember when I said weight loss was easy for me, and I feel guilty about that, but I had my struggles. Getting into maintenance was definitely my struggle. So I always say I did not arrive at maintenance so much as it was a reluctant acquiescence that I guess I'm here, because I did not hit a weight that I thought that I would hit. And one of the shifts I've seen in the years with Brightline Eating is they don't talk about the French formula like they used to. So when I first started, your goal weight was your French formula weight. So being 5'2", 110 would be my French formula weight. So that's what I had in my head, that I would get down to 110 pounds. And I stalled out at 135. And I thought, at 5'2", I'm still technically overweight at 135 pounds. So I just kept trying to lose and kept trying to lose and just felt frustrated. And it was really, really difficult for me. And so I was at that weight for about 3 months before I finally, after numerous coaching calls, dealing with massive excessive hunger and just white knuckling through all of it, I finally had to say, okay, I give, I'm here.
And so you are now 135.
I hover anywhere between 135 and 143. Like there's just such a wide fluctuation. And a lot of people will say, give yourself a good 6 to 10 pound range. And I find I usually stick within about 2 pounds, but you definitely can fluctuate for any number of reasons.
Now you mentioned that coaching calls. I just want to back up to that for a little second. So were these one-on-one coaching calls? Or are you talking about you have a group coaching calls? And I'm assuming that's with Bright Lifers.
There are some in boot camp. There are coaching calls, and they are group coaching calls. And you have a Brightline Eating coach, and you can either submit questions and have them answered, or in Bright Lifers, there's a daily accountability call. So one of the coaches begins a call every morning at 8:30 Eastern time, and you can just get on, raise your hand, share something that you want, ask for, like if you're looking for buddies or for a sponsor, you can put that request out there. You can ask for coaching around your program. So any one of those things, that's a daily call. And then there are regular coaching calls, which are that you submit your questions for. There are special interest groups. There are some phone calls for the special interest groups. There's one called Bright Lifers Fifth Bright Line, which is specific for eating disorders. There's just endless support, wisdom, guidance. And of course, there's a Bright Lifers Facebook page, which is pretty huge. It's about 5,000 people at this point. But you put a question out there and you will get just a plethora of incredible answers, incredible support. Actually, I went through cancer while I was in Brightline Eating, and there's a Bright Lifers special interest group for cancer. And the support that I got through the entire journey was, it was just staggering. I still, to this day, it just gets me choked up.
Well, when you posted that picture that I stay my why, the BLE, that choked me up.
Yeah.
I thought, I've got to ask you. I knew you probably wouldn't know me, but I had to ask you just to share that aspect of it. So you said in the beginning that you were diabetic. You're no longer diabetic.
Nope.
You are no longer high blood pressure, and you're cancer free.
Yep.
That is a huge why beyond your child too. And
right from the beginning of Brightline Eating, not recommended, but I went off all of my medications because they made me feel so horrible. And I just knew that I was going to be able to improve my health. So I gave up all those medications. I reversed the diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And it was right about the time I was starting to approach maintenance. Here I am feeling great. I'm getting thin. I'm feeling healthier and better than I've ever felt in my entire life. And I was diagnosed with cancer. And it felt like the biggest slap in the face. But I have to say, I wouldn't have even known that I had it had I not lost that weight, because I wouldn't have gone to the doctor. And I wouldn't have been tested. And I was really incredibly fortunate. I caught it right in the nick of time. I was still stage 1A. I was 1% away from the next stage, which would have required chemo. But I didn't have to. I got away with just surgery. And now I'm coming up on 2 years cancer free.
Wow.
And it was a lifestyle cancer. So it was really the way that I was eating and the extra weight that I was carrying was the cause of the cancer that I had.
That just gives me goosebumps. That's so incredible. And I just hope and pray for your continued good health on that. And, obviously you're staying on a good path.
Yeah.
You say that you struggle in maintenance. Are there specific tools that you use to try to just motivate yourself? Or, like you mentioned checklists and all that. What there are so many things. Do you keep like a gratitude journal? And I mean, what are the resources? Or is it mainly the coaching calls, the accountability check-ins with the Brightline?
Yeah, there's definitely support. I avail myself of a lot of support. And I keep kind of the same basic tools that I've kept from day one. I write down my food every day. I write in my 5-year journal, which I love. Like at this time, I'm looking back 2 years in my 5-year journal and seeing all of my oncology appointments and how scared I was at that time and not knowing would I even be alive the next year to be writing in my, looking back on that stuff is, I love being able to, so I definitely recommend the 5-year journal, gratitude journal. And then one of the other things I do is I love to be of service. So I act as a buddy, I act as a sponsor, I act as a Gideon Games team leader, which is kind of a competition, a friendly competition in Bright Lifers. So being of service is something that I love to do. So like talking on, meetings like this, I'm part of a kind of a Lifers, meetup next week. And I love to connect with people. I, just like to share my story and see who I
Well, what you're doing, I mean, you're giving me hope. I'm about halfway through and I'm 5'2". And so I really can't even picture it. It kind of makes me think of what is called NSB for the new people, non-scale victories. I mean, I was walking in these size 16 pants today, which sounds maybe big to some, but when you've come from a size 26, I'm thinking, this is pretty nice. And I can't even imagine, what are you in a size, 2, 6?
Yeah.
I don't even know these numbers.
Yeah, size 6. I mean,
I have to be feeling like craziness compared to where you were.
It's insanity. I mean, one of the things that one of my buddies and I talk about this, like when summer hits and I pull out my clothes again, I hold up these jeans that look about this big to me and I'm like, there is no way these are getting on my body. And you put them right on and I'm like, oh, look at that. Or I'm like, this sweater shrunk in the wash. Oh no, it fits just fine. It's like, and that's one of the struggles of maintenance, especially having come from big numbers for me, having come from 330 pounds. The body dysmorphia is definitely the maintenance challenge. It is real and it is brutal sometimes.
So I deal with fear of success for some reasons. Do you have any kind of fear? Did you have like fear of failure, fear of success, or just no fear at all? You just
fear of failure, definitely, and a lot of like comparison parts, like there are people who get on the calls and they're like, oh, I'm 102 pounds and I can't stop losing weight. And I'm like, oh, boo-hoo for you, So I definitely, I had a lot of like, why can't I get there? But, your journey is your journey. And that's one of the things that I've had to step away from and just say, that's their story. It's not my story, but that's okay.
I kind of remember when we talked the other day for a little bit, didn't you say something about parts? I mean, you said comparison part right now. What is that thing that Susan has talked about? There's some kind of parts work. Is that right?
Yeah.
I haven't done it.
There are some, there's a program within Brightline Eating. It's Brightline Freedom, and it centers on the IFS, internal family systems work. It's a therapy modality, and it does talk about the parts of your system. You've got your authentic self, and then there are like manager parts, and I'm what they call manager led, which is why I'm very task oriented. There are firefighter parts who kind of want to come in and soothe the hurt in your system. And it's been fascinating. And I have to tell you, I thought it was the biggest crock when I first heard about it. I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I started doing it with my own therapist, and it's transformational. Like it's amazing. And being able to identify those parts and know that's not my highest self. Like that's not my authentic self that's saying those things.
I'm just curious because you mentioned like there was some abusive pattern early on in your life. Mm-hmm. Does that somehow connect with these parts that you're working through? Is that so? Look, like for example, my fear of success, I could maybe pick up that part and examine it without any guilt or shame or any of that kind of stuff. You just look at it. That's what I'm wondering. And again, it just sounds really interesting. Could you say the name of that again?
Brightline Freedom. I think
Bright.
you may have to be a lifer to access that, but the actual, like, the therapy is called IFS, Internal Family
Okay.
Systems. And there's
Okay.
tons of books out there about it and a lot of therapists who are certified in it.
Well, I'm gonna take a look at what the chat is saying here. But in the meantime, I'm seeing there are quite a few chat things. What are some of the other non-scale victories you have besides looking at miniature doll clothes?
That's a great one. My favorite one to this day, I don't imagine it will ever be unseated as my favorite, is travel. I always used to say, oh, I hate to fly, I hate to fly. But what it really meant was I just hated traveling as an obese person. I didn't have the energy to walk from one end of the airport to the other. It was shameful for me to be, trying to fit down the aisle of a plane and bumping into people and asking for seatbelt extenders and squishing into this little airplane seat. And now I have energy. I, fit easily into the seat. Every single time I fasten that airplane seatbelt and pull it and have this long tail and can cross my legs, I'm like,
And
wow.
no guilt. Everybody wants to sit by Kim.
I even sat in the middle on a 5-hour flight. Like, I would have never done that in a million years. So
Oh,
that's still my favorite one. And then there are just some that you don't expect. Like, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and we shop in the same stores now. It used to be that I could only shop in the plus size store, and that was like one store out of the entire outlet mall, and I was the only person shopping in that store. And now she and I go, Banana Republic, and we go into the dressing rooms next to each other, and we're like, what do you think of this? And I just would have never had those experiences with her if I weren't this size.
Now I'm just curious because one of the things one of my granddaughters asked me to do was a 5K. Have you done any exercise or anything like that?
I haven't done a lot. I actually really just started doing exercise. I didn't want to do it for a long time. It just didn't really interest me. I mean, I would do some walking, or when I went on vacation, I would, I had extra time, so I would go for like a run around the lake. But
Yeah.
I've never been much of an exerciser, and I've really just started kind of a formal exercise program. So I really lost all of this weight on food
It's
alone.
amazing. And
Yeah.
so it is possible.
Yeah.
And not only possible, it's recommended in the beginning at least until
It
you
is.
really are automatic with all of your choices, which is
Definitely.
great because,
If
yeah.
you have an established exercise program, you don't have to stop doing it. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that. And they're like, I miss exercise and I want to get back to it. No, if you're already established and it doesn't require kind of a willpower draw, you don't want to be starting diet and exercise at the same time, because there's that willpower drain. But if you're already doing it, keep doing it. But if you're not, don't start. And they also don't recommend starting as you're transitioning into maintenance, because again, there's just a lot of kind of intuition and changes, and you want to be in touch with your body about, is there hunger, what is my body asking for? And so a starting of an exercise program can throw those cues off.
Well, I can't even imagine transitioning with adding food because a couple months ago, I'm about, I'd say 14, 15 months in, and it's actually going to be 500 days on December 3rd. Yeah, but I decided I was doing 10-10 split for vegetables, and for newcomers, it's normally 6 ounces and then 14 ounces for dinner, 6 ounces for lunch, but it's very common to go 10 and 10. Well, I decided I really need less vegetables at lunch. So I decided to do 8 and 12. I could not believe how that messed with my brain. I was so starving, not having those extra 2 ounces for lunch. It was crazy. For like 2 weeks, I had to keep giving myself permission. So yeah, the maintenance transitions just got to be a mind game for one.
It definitely messes with your head a little bit after you've been, or at least for me, it did, after being at the same plan for so long and then having to kind of tweak it. And, as somebody with binge eating disorder and, having been so overweight, I had no real ability to tune into my body. So for me, I couldn't really tell, what is my body asking for? I don't trust it. I always say my intuitive eating switch it's offline. It just doesn't work. So trying to tune in and say, what's my body asking for here? I don't have a big capacity for understanding that. And that's one of the things that's great about lifers and the coaches and they can kind of tease that out and talk you through it.
That's so great. I do have a few questions here.
Sure.
One is, have you always been whole food plant-based, or did that come and evolve over time?
I started Brightline Eating as a meat eater, and it was about 2 months in. I watched a documentary and I was like, oh, I'm going to just try this whole food plant-based thing for a week. And I never changed back. That was it. So I've been doing it for a little over 3 years. But
Wow.
for my first 2 months on Brightline Eating were with meat.
Healthy, happy, whole food plant-based.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I love it.
Do you have any idea, being in the Brightline community, of the percentage of people doing Brightline eating who are Christovacers? Those that have never strayed off the plan, who have
I don't
never
know the percentages, but it's very few. Yeah, there's not a lot.
Okay.
Not a lot. Yeah.
One person mentioned that she was able to do boot camp on the scholarship, so that was great. Okay, so I think that those are the questions there, but I'm going to ask you another question. If you had a do-over, is there anything you would do differently in this, in the way you did it?
I don't know that I would have done anything different. I mean, I think if I started today, I just think it would be different because Brightline Eating has changed so much. I think with the focus not being on the French formula now and on being what we call a bright body, just kind of knowing where your body belongs, not necessarily using any predetermined final weight. I think that would have helped me in the transition to maintenance without feeling like I was failing it because I couldn't get to a low enough weight. But I don't know that I would have done anything different. I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful for what I've got.
And just on that weight thing, see, I was looking at the BMI, since we're the 5'2" each, 5'2" eyes of blue. Anyway, I was looking at BMI, and going into normal weight, the high number was 136. So that's why 135 is what I've been hoping to hit. Yeah. That would also be half of what I was when I started. So yeah. That'd be cool.
And just knowing, like, when you come from big numbers like I did, I have extra skin. There's just no way around it. I'm 51 years old. You don't get to 51 and losing all this weight and have your skin snap back like a youngin. So that definitely skews the number. So I've got probably a good 15 pounds of extra skin on me. And that was something that I also I knew it, but I wasn't really aware of just how much it was. And I went to a plastic surgeon at one point, not really with the intent to get the surgery, but I was kind of trying to get a sense of this extra skin. And at the time I was still at like 152. And the surgeon said, you have no fat on you. Like, you are virtually almost skin and bones. Like, if we were to do surgery, there's nothing on you that I can even liposuction. And that, you want to talk about messing with your mind. Here I was thinking I was 40 pounds from goal. And a surgeon says to me, I don't want to see you lose more than another 10 pounds.
Wow.
What? Yeah.
Number one, I don't think anyone here would think you're 51 years old. I'm pretty sure that you get mixed up with your teenage daughter sometimes. Just saying.
Thank you.
Really beautiful. So one question too, for someone here tonight, they're thinking about starting Brightline Eating. What would you tell them?
Come on in. As Susan says, sit all the way down at the table. Like, come all the way in and sit all the way down at the table. Just commit to it fully and just follow the plan, because it so works. It so works. I could have never in a million years imagined that I would get here, that I would not be binging, that I would not be white knuckling every day of my life, that I would ever have this level of integrity around my food and watching myself make the right choices day after day after day, after a lifetime of wondering why I couldn't do better. I can't tell you what a gift this is to me, to my daughter, to just, it's the most beautiful thing. Like, it's just the most beautiful gift that I've ever had given to me. And I'm so grateful. So come on in, sit down, avail yourself of the tools, and the support is phenomenal.
Wow, that's awesome. You know, you talked about what you do differently. There's one thing that you mentioned I would have done differently. I would have bought a 5-year journal. I haven't done it yet, but it's going to be a gift to myself pretty soon because that sounds so incredible. I can only imagine some of those posts in that book with, you know, I'm in remission.
Yeah.
I'm I've hit, you know, and then maybe some tough stuff too.
There was. I mean, the day
People
I got diagnosed and, when I hit plateaus and just stuff in my personal life, it's just, it's a little bit of a roller coaster, but in a fun way, just looking back and being like, wow, I remember when I was in that spot and I just felt like it was the worst thing ever and it would never end. And look at me now, like, look at
yeah,
how I got through that.
yeah.
It's a great
Now
reminder
I,
of,
I do have
you'll
somebody
get through.
asking a question here. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You mentioned keeping your food simple. There seems to be a lot of people who are obsessed with recipes and variety. I know that there's room for everyone's journey, but what is your perspective on this?
I think that for me, the simple food works best. And I think there are a lot of people who also subscribe to that. But like I said, it's really about finding how it works for you. If keeping your meal, like I eat the same thing, breakfast, lunch, and dinner I eat the same thing for breakfast, the same thing for lunch, the same thing for dinner, almost every day. But there are other people who, when they do that, they feel very deprived. So you have to just kind of tune in to what's going to work best for you. If you're going to feel deprived eating the same thing, then it's not going to work for you. So
Right.
yeah, I just think knowing yourself, and I felt that way for a while. Like I said, when that simple food movement first came out, I was like, absolutely not. You are not taking this away from me. And it was very organically that I just kind of navigated to the other side where I was like, gosh, you know what? Simple is so much easier. And also because I batch cook and, bulk prep, eating the same thing, I don't have to make 10 different things to carry myself through the week. I make one set of lunch, one set of dinner, one pot of oatmeal, and I'm good to go.
And so just to clarify on that, you batch cook, but do you work outside of the home?
I
Or are
do.
you working remotely? I mean, I know you do IT.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
I don't know
work,
if you do it from home or what.
I'm back.
If
I mean, prior to COVID, I was every day in the office, and
okay.
now I do hybrid. I work some days at home and some days in the office, but my food is the same every single day.
And so what I get at is when you batch cook, do you actually say, okay, 4 ounces or 6 ounces of beans, or let's say whatever, do you put that aside in those portions, or do you like, okay, here's a big tub of the vegetables and I'll just weigh them out as I go? What do
I
you
do
do?
the big tub. Yeah, I've got the big tub of stuff, and every day I just weigh out what I need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is great. We are getting down to the very end here. Krista's asking, I'm down 80 pounds and my hair is starting to thin and starting to think of loose skin. Did you have issues with that?
I certainly did. Well, I mean, from my top weight, I'm down almost 200 pounds. So I absolutely have the loose skin issue. And there's nothing I can really do about that. That's part of the thrust of my doing some exercises now, is to tighten it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think I may not love it, but it's better than having it full of fat. And as far as hair, yes, I lost a ton of hair. Secret between us, this is extensions, because my hair got so thin and I was so self-conscious about it that I had to do something. I was just feeling really awful about it. So again, it's,
I'll
something
have to,
I didn't
I'm sorry,
love, but
I'll have to blip that out since this is being recorded.
that's okay.
Just kidding. But anyway, I want to address the hair thing because I have not had a problem with hair. And I think my secret is, and I've posted it many times in the We Eat Bright with Lines. Before Brightline Eating, my naturopath, who I credit for saving my life from Lyme disease, she suggested that I start having bulletproof protein powder, collagen protein powder. It's great for your joints, skin, hair. And I will tell you that 1 scoop a day in the cup of tea at 3 o'clock, it gives me energy. It gives me, I believe it gives me my hair. It has helped in many ways. It's the best 40 calories that I have all day. I really truly recommend it, and I know from a personal someone who I know personally who had a patch of baldness in her hair, went to the same naturopath, and she suggested the powder because she was whole food plant-based, and her hair came back. So I would strongly suggest that. And to Debbie, that was bulletproof collagen unflavored powder. There's no sugar in it. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at bulletproof.com. But we are now at 9:26, and I hope that I got the questions, everybody. Do you have any closing thoughts, Kim, for us as we go through? I'm about, as I said, I'm going to be 500 days pretty soon. But do you feel this is sustainable in your life? I mean, you're a crystal vaser.
Yeah.
Do you see that going forward?
100%. I mean, there's no situation at this point I haven't been through. I've traveled, I've been away for conferences, for work. I have gone on vacation, I've been through power outages. I've been through cancer. I've been away from home. I've gone to restaurants. I'm single, so I go out on dates. Like, there's literally no situation I have not been in, and I've never broken my lines. There was an interview that Susan did with this couple who lives in Alaska. And I think the gentleman said, don't find the excuse, find the way. Like, there's always a way to stay bright. And for me, like when I travel or, go on these week-long work conferences, I make a plan, and I've got plan A, B, C, and D. Like, this is my first choice. This is my second choice. This is my third choice. And if none of those work out, I can skip a meal. Like, there's no reason, like, hunger's not an emergency, as we like to say. There's no reason that I can think of ever for me to break my lines. There's just not. So
you are truly an inspiration. You are a champion to me.
thank you.
And I want to say that I'm just very grateful that you are willing to share your story.
Thank you.
And,
Sure.
the struggles and everything. It's not always easy to put that out there, but I know that you've given hope to someone tonight. You have me. And I want to put it out there to anybody who is listening to this too, that if you have someone that you know who's doing Brightline Eating and they are a champion to you, send them a name my way, because these are the kind of stories that really support everybody. And you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to, like Susan said in her book, what is the line that grabbed you? It's suicide on the
installment plan.
Suicide on the installment plan. No need for that.
No.
There's a method, there's a way, and it works. And a lot of people are very, very grateful. I know that I am, to Susan Pierce Thompson for writing the book and for doing everything she does to keep us motivated too. So anyway, if you want to unmute yourself, you can, but I want to thank everybody for coming. And next week we have Amanda, Too Close Town, and I hope I said your name, Amanda, right. If you want to give a wave, she's going to be my guest next week. And I am going to say, as I've said, this is now 15.
Wow.
Good night, stay bright, and don't let the bed bugs bite.
Thank you for doing that.